if a man becomes terminally ill and his wife becomes the caretaker, there is a 2.9% separation rate. If the woman is terminally ill and their male partner becomes the caretaker, they leave at a 21% rate, which basically means that men are approximately 624% more likely to separate from a woman if the woman gets sick.
That is alarming, shocking. And it was so alarming and shocking, I had to include the study in the book. For me, and I wrote this in the chapter around love is conditional. We have to understand that the myth that presents itself is that love is unconditional. It is, if you find the right person, there's no conditions. That could be true with your children, right? Your child could go do something heinous, and I believe there could or would still be love for them. But that's not the case with our partners. And for us to be aware that there are conditions when we go into these relationships, that's the most important. So it's almost a warning sign, in particular to women in that chapter, to say, there are conditions. And unfortunately, when people have gone through and interviewed these men who have left the women on their deathbed, and even the women, because it's 2.9% of women leave men, even the women who've left the men, what they will say is that they're no longer getting fill in the blank. They're no longer getting the emotional intimacy. They're no longer getting the physical intimacy. They're no longer getting the, you fill in the blank. And as a result of no longer getting this thing, and the thing is the condition, they're out.
So you know how we found out that when women get cancer, their husbands are more likely to leave them? I thought it'd be fun to go through the paper where this stat comes from. So one, we can actually see the stats. And two, so that when you tell people about this and they say you're wrong, you have the facts and you know where it comes from. Because I love fighting people with stats. So this was a 2009 study called Gender Disparity in the Rate of Partner Abandonment in Patients with Serious Medical Illnesses. And 2009. So in this study, there were 515 patients who were married. They had either brain tumours, a solid tumour in their nervous system, or multiple sclerosis. And out of these patients, 53% were women and 47% were men. So what they found was over the course of this study, which was about a year and a half, and throughout treatment, the divorce rate was similar actually to normal divorce rates. So it was around 11.6%. However, when they dug deeper and looked at the gender disparity, they found that women were getting divorced at a rate of around 21%, whereas men were only around 3%. So if you flip this round, out of the 515 people, the amount of those people who got divorced, 88% of the people getting divorced were women because their partners were leaving them during cancer. They also found that the people who were getting divorced and separated had a decreased quality of life afterwards, which affected their treatment and just their recovery, because they found that they were more likely to be hospitalised because they probably had no one at home to look after them. They were less likely to participate in clinical trials because risky, no one to look after them. They were less likely to receive multiple treatment regimes, less likely to complete cranial irradiation, and less likely to die at home because they've got no one at home. And it's unsurprising to know that one of the conclusions they came to was they suggest that men are less able to undertake the caregiving role and assume the burdens of home and family maintenance compared with women. Thus, a woman becomes willing sooner in the marriage to commit to the burdens of having a sick spouse. So essentially, backed up by other studies, as soon as a woman gets sick and she's not doing the majority of the caregiving and the household tasks, men are like, no, I don't want to do them. Oh, I have to actually care for you now. Goodbye. And they also found that if you had a longer marriage, you were more likely to stay together, which is nice. But also, if you were an older woman, they were more likely to leave you. So, long and healthy marriage, hopefully you're fine because you've gone through the most of it. But yeah, how awful. So now you've got the stats. If anyone wants to fight you about this, you've got the source. I love fighting with stats.
Okay, story time. So, when I got diagnosed with cancer in 2016, I did, chemo, immunotherapy. I went to actual therapy, talking therapy, group therapy for other cancer patients. And the thing that sticks out to me the most from my time was other cancer patients, in particular women. So I was a single mother at the time, but I had a best friend. I had parents who loved me. I had My now husband actually was a close friend of mine as well. And I just had people who like loved me and really, 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 tried their best to make my time through this horrific ordeal as easy as possible, whether by like being there emotionally for me or buying me snacks and candies, making sure that like everything was done, taking me to appointments, helping me out with my daughter, all of those things. But most of the other women that were with me in chemo or immunotherapy or the talking therapies did not have that support. They were all married. Some of them had grown kids. Like the type of cancer that I had isn't really common in people like my age. It's quite common in like older women. So they were older. They were in their 50s, 40s, late 40s, 60s sometimes. And they would drive themselves to chemo and they would drive themselves home. And then often they would have to go to work. And often they would have to go home and clean and cook and labor. And it's just wild how many women I spoke to whose husbands had left them because their diagnosis was not the best one and they didn't want to deal with taking care of a sick person. So they just simply had to do it all on their own. I think the statistics is something like husbands are like 20 times more likely to leave a sick wife with a terminal or chronic illness than like women are. Women tend to stay and take care and help the husband through it. Men do not. Men don't stick around. And I think about it constantly. I think about these women that I had met who were really struggling with their diagnosis. And then on top of that, struggling often with divorce or with the separation or with the fact that they had a husband who was just not helping them at all get through the fucking ordeal of having cancer, which I know we made a lot of progress. Like I am doing well, I'm in remission, but like, dear God, it's still a terrifying illness. And I often think about if I had been in that situation, would I have been able to emotionally survive the trauma of having cancer? And I don't think I would have. Anyway, the moral of the story is men are fucking assholes.
Why do the husbands choose to leave at the most critical time when your wife needs you the most? They're not typically able to do a lot of the things. So earlier we talked about whole concept of being like more domesticated.
Yeah.
Be able to go and do your laundry, to your cooking, to washing the dishes, taking care of the children, taking care of your wife. That becomes a burden and stress. And there must be a better way to cope with this or deal with this, but it's very specific or more to do within this Western culture, American culture. In Asia or other parts of the world, not as much.
Is it more common for marriages to end after the wife has a life change medical problem than a man? Yes, absolutely. Yep. In hospitals, I think they teach it in medical school. They train the medical staff on this, that when a woman gets sick or when she has a life change like that, there's a high chance that the man will leave her. They teach that in medical school. Not the other way around. They don't teach that, oh, when a man gets sick and his life is on the line and this life-changing thing, oh, there's a high chance the woman's going to leave him. No. So this is what I mean, okay, when I'm calling bullshit out, like on my page, my content. I know people like to be like, well, it goes both ways. Well, what about the women? Well, what about women? No. Yes, there are rotten women out there. Yes, there are women that are like just off their rocker out there as well. But if we were to run the statistics, okay, men take the cake. Not a good cake to take, but men take the cake. So yes, absolutely. The answer is yes to your question. Is it common for marriages to end after the wife has a life-changing medical problem than a man? Yes. Sad? Yes. I would like to see more real men in the world. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
So men are 6 times more likely to leave their spouse if she is terminally ill. That's 600%. This is a stat from Diary of a CEO, by the way. So if you haven't watched that episode, please watch it. It's not that I'm shocked. It's just that these are things that we've always known about men. But to have stats like that to back it up is just wild to me. And this is why I sound crazy to most people when I tell them that for me, I don't care about what a man has. I don't care about how much money he has. It's about how he shows up for me. That's why when I was on Convo, I made that example of, this is a funeral. You are coming in your fully preserved self, in your three-piece suit. What about the work, the hard labor that needs to be done? What about the things that money cannot solve? Show me how you can support me in difficult times. It's very easy to be a good man when things are great. But masagniwa, men will switch up on you so quickly and it's so messed up. But I also blame us because we are so worried about all the external factors when we're choosing a partner. We don't observe character enough. Being terminally ill is one thing, because if you're terminally ill, you know you're going to die. But what happens if you get into a car accident and you're in a wheelchair for the rest of your life? Can you trust your spouse to take care of you like that as a woman? Can that man be there for you? Is that man gonna wipe your ass? So you guys can actually continue to worry about a man's bank account. I will continue here in my little corner with being more concerned about how much self-preservation a man has. How selfish is he? That's my criteria on whether I want to be with you or not, period.
Yeah, my husband ghosted me when I was in the hospital. Oh, classic. You know what? This is narcissism on display. They won't come to the hospital, or they feel put upon because you're in the hospital and you're fighting for your life, or you have long COVID, or you've got whatever you've got. You don't understand. You're disrupting their lives. They're inconvenienced. You can't have sex with him. He's going to have to help with the kids. And so they actually resent you as if it's your fault for being in the hospital or being ill. Are you kidding me? Narc, absolute evil narc. When you get out of the hospital, ma'am, get away from him. I don't want that narc standing by my hospital bed close to where the plug is. He'll pull it. That's incredible selfishness.
Men are known to leave their wives when their wives get sick, and I just started watching Love is Blind, the new season, and this woman is describing her family dynamic where both of her parents have MS. They're not together. Her dad has been married to her stepmom for 25 years, and she is the full caregiver of her father who has MS. She described her mother's situation. Her mother was never married, had been with a man for 15 years, and when her MS got really bad, he dipped out on her. She is trying to communicate that this is a marriage thing, that it's because her dad and her stepmom are married, the stepmom is the caregiver. This has nothing to do with marriage and has everything to do with the gender roles. The woman stayed with her partner when her partner got sick, but the man will always leave his partner when she gets sick. When he now perceives the woman as a burden, he will leave her behind. This is not new. We see this all the time. If a woman is diagnosed with a terminal illness, a man will not stick around. And yet women are the ones who are continuously caregiving to their partners, to their families, to their communities. Men just leave. They don't hold up to their responsibilities.
Is this true? Let's find out. It is common for couples to vow in sickness and in health, but is this true? And do partners really stay around if the other one gets sick? And according to this article, they don't. Marriages are more likely to end in divorce when wives get sick. Iowa State University conducted a study. The study found that couples are 6 times more likely to end up in divorce if the wives get sick compared to marriages in which the wives remained healthy. The study also found that a husband's illness did not increase the risk for divorce. Unfortunately, this happens to even celebrities. This happened to Yolanda Hadid and David Foster when he divorced her because she got sick with Lyme disease. Comment down below of any other celebrity couple that you know that this happened to, or personal experience. This is brutal.
Growing up religious, I realize now as an adult how unhealthy and wrong it was for me to be taught as a child what unconditional love is without having any clarification around that and just being given that concept at such a young age. Because what a lot of women do is they grow up religious and they think they need to unconditionally love their boyfriends or love the men that they date and love their husbands. Okay? Let me tell you something. The only people that should receive your unconditional love as a woman are your children. You pour into your children without expecting to receive anything back in return ever. All adult relationships are conditional. They should be based on conditional love. Conditional love is that you both give each other mutual value And that is the basis of the relationship, and that is why you'll continue to love each other. Once one stops giving the other party value, they have broken the conditions of that relationship, and therefore they do not have the grounds or the basis for that love to continue, because it's a conditional relationship. Even your friendships as an adult are always conditional, because you all are giving each other mutual value, and that is the basis of the relationship. Men who say, or women who say, that they love their boyfriend or girlfriend unconditionally are lying, or do not know what conditional love means or unconditional love means. Okay? A man can actually never unconditionally love a woman, because he's receiving some kind of value by being in that relationship with that woman naturally. Okay? There is a condition, there's a basis to the relationship. And ask any man a hypothetical. If the woman that you were with could not have sex with you for the rest of your life, would you still be with her? Okay? If they were to answer honestly, they would not be with her, because that is a huge value proposition for men in a relationship. They like to downplay it because they don't want to have to give you any value back. But that is a huge basis for the entire relationship, is that they are extracting that value from you. And if you were to ask any man and they were to answer honestly, they would tell you they're not going to be in that relationship if they're not receiving sex. So they're already getting that value from you. Okay? That's one of the conditions of the relationship. If they were not receiving that value, they wouldn't be in that relationship in the first place. So a man can never love you unconditionally because he's already getting something out of you by being in that relationship. Therefore, you also should not love a man unconditionally. He's getting something out of being in a relationship with you, whether it's smecks, your emotional labor, your ability to carry children, your freaking womb, your ability to carry and create human life, your domestic labor, whatever it is. There's so many benefits that men receive of being in a relationship with us that they cannot possibly be loving us unconditionally because of just how much value we give them as women being in a relationship with them. So there needs to be some kind of value that you are receiving back. Otherwise, as a woman, you're receiving nothing, okay? Your unconditional love should be for your children. It should never be for men. Okay, if you think you can unconditionally love a man, all that's going to happen to you is you are going to be used and abused.